Hi, everyone. Can you hear us? I think so. We're going to start in 1 minute. Okay, hi, everyone. Welcome to our series, Raising Hashem's Children, Part 1. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Miriam's Motherhood Center. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for everyone for being here. And we're very excited to start our series on what is essentially Yiddish Chinuch, Hasidic Chinuch. What does Torah have to tell us? We have Torah Chassidus that guides our lives, Torah Lashon Hara, that is always relevant, and as the Rebbe quotes, Hadashim, always new, it's always telling us something new based on the new challenges and the new times and the new situations that come up. It's that same Torah that applies to us. So we're excited to look at what does really Torah teach us that can apply in a real and meaningful way to the chinuch of our children. Those who are here in person, we're happy to see you. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, okay, sorry. Just a moment. Some technicalities here. We have all our technicalities up and running. We are in person and everyone who's joining us. Yep. Okay. Just noting that we have a handout here. Those who are here in person, we'll see if it's possible. We'll try to post it afterwards on the website, where you can request it and we could send it to you. We'll figure it out. But we're just giving a heads up to whoever's watching online that we're following a handout for some basic sources that we're going to work off of. There's an expression that I love that says, if you don't know your destination, any road will get you there. I don't know where it comes from, but it's a great line, because often we just kind of like, we would never think of getting into a car and just, well, drive, let me just see the recent destinations, let me drive somewhere. We wouldn't do that. But oddly enough, in the most meaningful, most important areas of our lives, we often just hear of a method or a piece of advice, and we just go without really asking ourselves, like, wait, first, what's my destination? Where am I going? And does that route help me get to where I'm getting to? So what we want to really focus primarily on tonight for part 1 is where we've been going. Because often we get stuck when we talk about parenting, about chinuch, with like how to. And how to is very important, but we can't talk about how to before we even know what it is that we want. So first and foremost, what is chinuch? What's the goal of chinuch? What are we trying to accomplish in Yiddish Hasidic chinuch? And there's a line from the Rebbe that really encapsulates, I think, so much of what Torah Chassidus has to say on this topic. That personally, these few lines speak to me very much. And I'm going to read a few lines here from the Rebbe's words. Pu'ulas chinuch. This is from Teres Menachem from Hisvadius, if I bring in a Tavshim and Hey. Pu'ulas chinuch. What is the goal and the accomplishment and the purpose of chinuch, specifically of Jewish women in their roles as mothers, as counselors, as teachers, and whatever role? What is it? What are we talking about? What does it mean to be machanech a child? Legalais etzel hamechunachim. It means to reveal in the mechunach, to reveal in the one we are educating, as a chelek elekam limal mamish, the spark, the part of Hashem, the literal part of Hashem that is in this mechunach. But oifen sheyachter is kol ma'osam, in a way. In other words, what does it mean to reveal? To bring it out and allow it to give it expression, so that this part of the Eibishter, that in this case we're talking about children, right? So that this Yiddish child has, should penetrate and permeate their entire being, meaning you actually see it reflected that you see that that they are reflected in their actions, in their speech, and even in their thoughts, that they are all completely permeated, that they are permeated with the Eibishter, with Kedusha, Chanie, the Eibishter who doesn't change. In other words, it might not sound very different from, we look at race from children. But there's a very big difference. It's not, chinuch is not simply, chinuch technically means training, right? And of course, we want to ensure that by the time our children are bar mitzvah, they have been accustomed to learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. But chinuch really is much more than that. Chinuch is a process through which we transform the way a child views himself or herself. And it's not that we're adding or changing something, but we're revealing the truth. Because there's a big discrepancy between who we essentially are and who we naturally are. Our essence is who we really are, but our essence doesn't come naturally. Naturally, a human being is born, I always like to think of it as like the clenched fist, right? The baby's born like this, and that just expresses everything about who we are naturally, right? Me! It's all about me, and that's natural. It's not our essence, but it is our nature, and we revert to that. Scientifically, they'll talk about different parts of the brain and how we revert to that. But that's what's happening, right? That's the default state that every human being falls back on at every moment without conscious thought, is that natural state of self-centeredness, of nefesh habahamis. And we're looking to teach a child in chinuch, not just in words, but really to make it alive and real to them, to bring out the truth in a way that it resonates. That's not who you really are. That's naturally how you feel like behaving, like a self-centered human being. But who are you really? Your essence is that you are a part of Hashem. And the implication of that, the difference between if I am a neshama or I am a human being who happens to have a Torah mitzvah I have to keep, is huge. There's a huge gulf between them, because if I'm a human being who is naturally self-centered and entitled to this and needs that, and life is about the physical, then you're coming and basically imposing on me all day. Right? You're constantly telling me things I need to do that I really don't want to do. I don't want to share. I don't want to listen. I don't want to learn. On and on and on. Right? You're just basically bossing me around and taking away my autonomy, my self-expression, my everything. Right? That's, yes, technically, you could just go about teaching a child, well, you must do this and you must do that and you must do the other. But especially in today's generation, we run into a lot of conflict. We really run into a brick wall trying to be mechanic that way, because we're not telling the child the truth. Right? We're really, and they're resisting that. It's a geula generation. They're geula children, and it doesn't feel right. If I'm a selfish human being and you're constantly telling me to do what I don't want to do, you know what? I'm not interested. And it reminds me of an expression, I believe, I'm quoting this correctly, the Frierdiker Rebbe told this to a chassid. When he came to America, he said, the American Jews are a fascinating breed. You can't tell them to do anything, but you can educate them. You can teach them to do everything. Especially American children, especially the children of the Western world of our generation, or anyone in today's generation, which is really who's been affected by that Western mindset. No one's interested in being told, squash yourself. You want, well, I'm telling you to do something else. So then we get into power struggles. I don't want to wear my socks tights, whatever. I don't want to be serious. I don't want to make a bracha. I don't want to something. I'm like, well, you have to, right? And we're arguing with them. And they're going like, but I want, and we're saying, but you have to, and I'm telling you to. And technically we're telling them what Torah has to say, but we're really not doing the essence of chinuch. And more in today's generation doesn't get us very far. So what is real chinuch? That was always real chinuch, really. But today, that's our only option, is to do it authentically, like we know about chassidus, that it's like maybe they manage somewhat before without chassidus. These days there isn't an option, is to really tell the child the truth. This is your self-expression. This is your truth. You're a neshama. You're a chelik elikam imal mamash, and this is what is going to give you the greatest satisfaction and joy. This is what you want to do. And in fact, we'll discuss this in another class in Hashem specifically as it relates to more details of that. But this is really the essence of the whole Tzidus Hashem concept. That the Rebbe is telling the child, you are a neshama. Who are you up against? Not your parents, not your teachers, the Yetzer Hara. He's the one that doesn't want to keep Torah mitzvahs, not you. You're the neshama that wants to do this. And it's not a trick, because if we're playing a game with a child, that's manipulation, and kids have antennas that are like super sensitive, they get it exactly. We really have to believe it. But if we believe I'm talking to a neshama, this neshama wants to keep Torah mitzvahs. That's what it really wants. If it's not doing that, it's just the Yetzer Hara in the way. There's just a difficulty there. I just have to clean off some dust. We just have to blow off the dust and remind the child who they really are. They're going to want to do this. If we really believe that and really see our children that way, we're talking to different beings completely. And it's, I have young children, Baruch Hashem. It's always fascinating to me. It's like, it's miraculous. And they're normal kids. They can misbehave. They do normal things. But it's always incredible to literally see how that happens. Like to witness that a regular child, if you just approach them from, this is what Torah says, this is what Hashem wants from you. And I believe you want to do that, right? That's what we're believing. If they're more receptive to the MS than we are, they don't have the challenges we have. They don't have the difficulties making Hashem real in their lives. Sometimes we think it's too much. It sounds too off. It resonates with their ethics because it's true. So that's the first thing, is to recognize that what does chinuch mean? Chinuch means more than just telling a child what to do and training them to do it in some external manner, prizes, whatever. Yeah, sometimes we utilize that, but that's not really chinuch. Chinuch means leading our children to grow up with a self-perception that, how do I identify? The world's very busy with identity. Everything's become an identity. What is my identity? My identity is, hello, hi, my name is, who am I? I am a child of the Abishar. I'm a part of Hashem himself. I was put here in this world to spread Yiddishkeit, to spread Hashem's message to the world. Like, that's who I am. And a child who sees themselves that way, like, that is the ultimate success in chinuch. Second important introductory point. There's a story that I love about Rabbi Lou Sonnenschein, Rabbi Lou, a wonderful Mechanech in England. He tells the following personal story that I'm grateful that he shares, because it's so, I think we can all relate to it, and it's so impactful. He relates that he came to a yeshidus and he was speaking to the Rebbe, and he really shared with the Rebbe honestly a challenge he has in chinuch. And the challenge was that, like all human beings, like human parents, the frustration and the stress of dealing with young children or older children or whatever, small children, small problems, big children, big problems, would get to him, and at times he would lose his patience, and he would really just lose it sometimes, lose his temper with his children, verbally, maybe physically, whatever it was, he would just not act his best. And he was troubled by this. As every parent, we all know what mother still looks like. And he was really bothered. This is not the parent I want to be. How do I get myself to behave treat my children the way I want to treat them? And the Rebbe told him something fascinating, which, I talk to myself, if we could remember this all the time, what would our chinuch look like? The Rebbe says, imagine you were being Mechanech, Hashem's child. This is not your child. Imagine that this is Hashem's child. Would you ever lift your hand against a child of Hashem? And I think it's not just, of course, about hitting or whatever. It's a perspective that changes everything about our chinuch. Especially as mothers, it's like, it's my child. I carried this baby. I gave birth to them. I invested everything so much in them. I'm entitled, to something. I'm entitled to the nachas. I'm entitled that they should at least behave. I'm entitled to some gratitude, whatever the case might be. And I'm entitled to my vision for this child. Like, I'm entitled to raise them the way it feels right to me. That it should feel good to me. And this is perhaps the biggest challenge we have in chinuch, is that we, like any other human being, have our own nefesh habahamis. We are also naturally self-centered, not essentially, but naturally, and that can get in the way. And probably all of our parenting challenges boil down to that. It's like, wait, it's personal. I'm sure everyone's noticed it's easier to be a teacher of other children. You could do everything right. You could have everything figured out. We definitely all knew how to be behind of our parents' children. Right? Like we were going to be the best parents. We had it all figured out. We still have it all figured out, except somehow there's like a disconnect when it comes to our own children. Why? Because there's an ego involved. Suddenly it's like, wait, it's my child. You're misbehaving. Excuse me. Like that's I'm not okay with that. So we have our needs and our expectations and our perceptions and our agendas. And usually the child senses that and it gets in the way. And therefore, this is the second, really powerful starting point in chinuch, is this message that they're not really our children. And that's why we call this class Raising Hashem's Children. I want to read that in the Rebbe's words for a few moments. This is a Farbrengen from Tafshin Mem Gimel. In other words, the Rebbe says, Shloisha Shutim Ba'adam, says that there are three partners in the creation of a person, other the Imai B'Hakadosh Baruch Hu, his father, his mother, and of course Hashem. There would not be a child without all three. And how is the division of responsibilities? There are three partners in any business endeavor, in any situation. If you want to be a functional organization, you divide the responsibilities. What do we each do? So the division of responsibilities is that the Nyanim Ruchniim Shalayelet, the Ruchniis, the spiritual responsibilities on behalf of the child, his chinuch, teaching him to be a yid, as we defined it before, revealing their neshama and helping them identify and live as such. Our tachas achrayusim shel avimai, that is the responsibility of the parents. We get the ruchnius job, meaning Hashem has given us pikaden yakar b'yoser, the greatest and most precious. What's pikaden? The Abishar has like entrusted us with like a precious object, like when you take out a loan, right, and you like collateral, right? Thank you. The greatest collateral, there's just been entrusted to us this treasure that doesn't belong to us. We're holding it on behalf of Hashem. That's the treasure we have. We have a part of Hashem himself that he has given to us to hold on to protect, and do what? With the hope, Hashem's hope, that the parents will fulfill their role to ensure that the child's neshama shines as brightly as possible and completely, to the point, as we said before, that you see it reflected in their behavior, that it's not just a perception in their minds or their hearts, but if it's really true that we've revealed it, you see that they talk like that, they act like that, they think like that. So that's the parent's responsibility. It's Hashem's child. He says, I'm giving him to you for a lifetime, most actively until they get married. And of course, the younger they are, more active and the more involved the parents need to be. But I'm giving it for a period of time to protect, cultivate, and direct this neshama to ensure that it meets its potential, to ensure that it really comes out and flowers and blossoms and expresses itself. That's the parent's role. And but Hashem's a partner. So what's his part? To sustain the child, to ensure that the child has food and all their needs, with the child's health, etc. Those are tachas achrayusai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Those are the responsibility of Hashem. Reminder to make sure that you read, please. כאשר ההורים ממלא משכלתם ושותפים באופן על ידי חינוך בדרך תורה מצומצם in the partnership, their role in the partnership properly, child. Okay, we're working on that. Please make sure you're on mute. Then Hashem fulfills his part in Parnasa, in making sure that the parents are given the financial means of the child is given help, etc. Now, what's ironic about this is that we often assume the opposite. You know, Ruchni is Hashem's business. Gashmias, that's our business, right? We have to be concerned that the child should be emotionally healthy, have all their practical needs met. Ruchnis, we sort of think of as Hashem's department. And in a fascinating way, the Rebbe is really saying the opposite. That does not mean we don't actually have to take care physically of the child, but the concern about their needs. Meaning we have to do our thing, but who's taking responsibility for ensuring that what the child needs will be there? Meaning, right, we have to bathe the child and feed them or whatever, but who has to worry about, will we have enough money to raise this child? Will we have the resources? Will we have the energy, the time, the mental capacity? Am I capable of raising this child physically or emotionally? Like, I need this and I need that, and am I in a state to have a child? Am I in a state to raise a child? And all that's not our business. I'm not getting into the details of, like, a person has to talk to a Rav when there's a specific situation, but we tend to take much more responsibility than is really ours in terms of being concerned about, like, can we afford this child? Well, that's not our question to be concerned with. That's Hashem's job to be concerned with, making sure that we have the money or the time, the energy, etc., to take care of this child. We can serve them healthy food. We can't guarantee they'll be healthy. So being concerned for the gashmis of the child, that's actually Hashem's job. Our job is to ask ourselves, am I doing the ruchnius part? Am I being mechanech the child the way Hashem's child deserves? And the more we do our part, Rebbe says Hashem does his part. So the part I want to end with, yes, because really we're trying to control what we don't have control over. Like, we're so busy controlling, but we don't have control. We can't control the outcome, but we can control. We can't control the outcome of our pinot, but we can control our pinot, right? We control what we actually are doing. We can control the way we think about the child, relate to the child, what we teach the child, and then the outcome of the nachas, and of course the gashmis part of it. That's Hashem's business, exactly. So the key part I want to really emphasize here is the idea that imagine if we could always remember, this is Hashem's child. It's not my child. I don't get to decide what should happen with them. Hashem has decided what should be. I just have to say, how can I meet that need, right? It's like being a babysitter, and we don't like to think of it that way because, like, our ego goes, excuse me, it's my child. But we're really Hashem's really privileged and honored babysitters. And our babysitter is not entitled to come and say, I think it's time to toilet train your child now. Like, very glad, I will decide that. I'll let you know when I need your help. Right? We don't appreciate them deciding what our child should eat or should not eat. We give the instructions, please follow them respectfully. The same thing really is here. They're not our children. They're Hashem's children. And in terms of the way we relate to them, the way we discipline, the way anything, right? Our standards for the children, how different could things be if we remember this is Hashem's child? Hashem, what do you want for the child? What do you want from me in raising this child? And we take the ego out of it. And the child senses the ego is not there. Why do I have to do this? Not because I said so, because Hashem said so. And you and I remember when one of my children, I can't remember the context, said something about, I can't wait to be an adult because adults get to do whatever they want. And I said, I'm really sorry to break the news to you. Adults get to do very little of what they want, a lot less than what children can do. You get to spend most of your life doing what you want to do. Adults actually have to do what is needed of them. And it's usually meeting other people's needs. So it was very funny. Exactly. Unless you're nursing a child and have to be off, like, who's having foods or things like that. But yeah, exactly. So, the important message that I felt, necessary to share with the child is, like, none of us really get to do whatever we want. We're all here serving Hashem, and a parent has to do what Hashem wants from them, and a child has to do what Hashem wants from them. So you're not serving the parent, and the parent's not serving the child. We're both serving the Eibishter. And, it sounds like semantics and it sounds lofty, but it matters in little things. Like, for example, a 3-year-old or 4-year-old is sitting there, doesn't want to say a bracha, or doesn't want to put on their tzitzis, or doesn't want to put on their tzniustic clothes, or whatever the case might be. So when it's personal and it's you have to do it because I need you to do it, and I said so, and you're my child, and this is the way, the child senses there is a power struggle, and by definition, the way development works is the child wants to become independent, assert their independent identity, and we're going to run to issues. Thank you. Right, exactly. Thank you. Precisely. That's a great point. Thank you. What do you thank you? You do the mitzvah for me, right? And so often we fall into the trap. It's so natural to do that, of like personalizing as if like do me a favor. Like, no, it's not doing a favor at all. And if we could get our feelings out of the way, including often fear, because I find that it's so natural these days to parent and fear. There's a sense of like, okay, my 4-year-old doesn't want to say a bracha, and we're already like imagining Rahman al-Islam, they're doing, going who knows where, and we all get where that fear comes from, but like we've got to put that aside and be a little rational here and like, quit the fear, quit the ego. What are people going to say? My child, whatever, all to the side and like, just hold on. What does Hashem want from the child right now? Right now, Hashem wants the child to do the mitzvah. What does Hashem want from me? To be mechanech the child. Mechanech means I have to help the child see themselves correctly and therefore do the proper action. That's not necessarily called forcing, or necessarily not called forcing. Forcing doesn't usually equal chinuch. So I might step back and with the ego out of the way say, okay, you're Hashem's child. So, all right, talk to them about what Hashem wants from them. You're a Yiddish child, right? This is a mitzvah. I see the Yetzer Hara is trying to get you to not listen to Hashem, but I'm sure you're such a strong soldier. It's Hashem who's going to do what Hashem wants, whatever language we're going to use, and we'll elaborate more on that in Yerushalayim. But the moment it's not about us, it's strictly, this is between you and Hashem. And my chinuch of you is between me and Hashem. I'm obligated to Hashem to do the right thing by you, and you're obligated to Hashem to keep the mitzvahs. It takes the whole ego issue out of it, which makes it actually so much simpler. So that applies to getting them to do the mitzvahs. It applies to our discipline and the choices that we make for them, right? When our ego and what are people going to say and how do I feel and it's not fair and you're being unappreciative, right? And all of that, it's like, why do our children have to help? Not just like, I worked so hard for you. Do you know how much I've done for you? Can't you just, no child really is interested in being pulled into that guilt trip. But if it's like, Torah says there's a mitzvah of kibbutz aim. And it's a mitzvah to help your parents for Shabbos, and it's a mitzvah to do such and such. And we all do Shabbos jobs because we all prepare for Shabbos. Like that's what a Yid does. And we're looking to just teach them how a Yid behaves. How does Hashem want you to behave? It's actually chinuch that's going on, as opposed to a personal power struggle, which we might win in the short term, but doesn't get us very far. And on that note, on the note of setting our chinuch agenda by your Hashem's child, not you're mine and I own you and I get to tell you what to do and you own me or whatever. The Rebbe says something fascinating. We all know the story of Kimchas, which we could discuss in many angles and many directions, about recognizing, of course, the story of Kimchas is that she had 7 children who became 7 sons who turned into Kohanim as he grew up, and the Chachamim were like really astonished and fascinated at this unique situation where one woman had 7 sons who all reached a place and a rank that they deserved to be Kohanim Gadol, that was appropriate to be Kohanim Gadol, that was rare. How do you raise such incredible children one after another? So they came and asked her, what do you do? She did not say, I don't have a clue. She didn't say that. She knew exactly what she did because she had done it with intention. And of course, what you say she did, she says, the walls of my house never saw my hair. And, I don't want to divert into that because it's its own huge discussion, but just because it's important, briefly, what that shows us is that a critical piece, maybe the most important piece in the chinuch of our children, has nothing to do with what we tell them or what we do with them, but what we do with ourselves, right? Simply our own standards, working on our own Yiddishkeit, whether our children see it or don't see it, whether they know it or don't know it, or we think they know it or we think they don't know it. actually has the greatest impact on the Yerushalayim, and ultimately is going to express itself as that. And that's a really important part of it. In fact, the Rebbe says chinuch starts with chinuch of ourselves. Every single thing that we're thinking about in terms of chinuch, my child's struggling with davening, my child's struggling with anger, my child's struggling with Kabbalah soil, with listening, with learning Torah, with their tznius, on and on, whatever it might be, jealousy. Like, the first thing is, I am the child's primary role model. So what are they seeing? The most sobering thing for every parent is recognizing, like Baal Shem Tov says, a mensch is a spiegel, person is a mirror. So children are mirrors, very much so. And you hear a child talk, there's the Yiddish expression, was die Eltern kaien, die Kinder speien. What the parents chew, the children spit out. If you hear a child say something, you kind of wonder where they got it. But of course, they could have picked it up in school, and they could have whatever. But for the most part, we should wonder, what are our children picking up, right? What language, what attitudes, what behaviors, what do they see us modeling? Is the greatest influence on everything. So, we might think like, oh, we need to fix this child, and I fall into that trap all the time. So I think this child's got this issue, let's fix them. Wait, hold on. First fix myself. What can I improve on that is going to filter to the child? Okay, and then we can go into the direct and active chinuch of the child. But most of it is the work that we don't usually want to do, which is deep inside ourselves. But then the Rebbe mentioned something else, and that is that this incident with Kimches teaches us more than only the power of tznius or the power of our own, saying the child's kapitel, davening for them, and which is such a huge piece of chinuch. Is that, think about her expectations. In other words, she didn't say, I don't know, right? She clearly took on this extra careful standard of tznius with the goal of I want to ensure that my children are given the best possible ruchnius ammunition to grow up to be who they need to be. So she had this vision for her children. I don't know if she thought of Kahanim Gedolim, but she clearly had very big ambitions for them in terms of their ruchnius at the level they would reach. So the Rebbe says like this, we might think, see, then, I'm reading the second paragraph here. Like, do I have to be that holy that my children should be Kahanim Gedolim? Who needs Kahanim Gedolim? I just need normal kids. Let them just be normal, right? Ish bein anashim, they say, just men amongst men, like a mensch. Let them just be mensch. Average. They shouldn't stick out. I don't need to be holier than thou. I'm not looking for some great chassid, lamdan, whatever. So as long as they're normal, you know what to say about from. There's you in the middle, and then there's whoever's more than me is fanatically religious, and whoever's less than me is modern, right? So they should be just that perfect middle that I am, because wherever I am, whatever I struggle with, it's not necessary. It's not important. It's not for women, it's not in this generation, it's whatever excuses we come up with, somehow they're totally don't belong to us, and anyone who does them is totally farkiyukt and whatever words we come up with. And of course, the people who do less, I can feel very good about myself because I'm already feeling like a total lousy human being, so I can at least gloat that I'm better than whoever, because they're such and such whatever titles we're going to give them, and I'm the perfect balance of from, and then of course my children should also be the perfect balance of from. They should never be any more than me, because that will make me feel bad. That my child's gonna be the one that comes to me and says, I don't eat this that you serve at your table. Forget it, no way, or whatever the case is. Please don't be any holier than I am, but definitely don't be any less, because somehow magically, of course that doesn't work out, because there's no such thing as a child being exactly the same as their parents. Usually they're less. So, right, but we kind of have this just be normal, right? I'm okay with where I am, so please be just there, and please don't improve on your Yiddishkeit much more, because that's gonna make me feel threatened or make you stand out, and people will think I don't know what and whatever. It's okay. So, okay, let them, they'll be stomped by Hannah, says. That's good enough. No, they'll be from. We're good. And what does the Rebbe answer to that? So a woman has the ability to raise children to be Kahanim Gedolim. Now, of course, we don't know what it means to raise Kahanim Gedolim specifically. We don't know how they're going to turn out. But the point is, if there's something more I could give them, if I know more, if there's a higher standard I could be sharing with them in a meaningful and happy way. If I have opportunities that maybe other people don't have, if I got a chinuch other people didn't get, whatever, like we're not judging others. Everyone's doing their best, but if I have more to give, is das gufa ba'vaisas, das is ihre Aufgabe. That's a clear indication from the Eibishter that that's my role. Oh, why does Hashem give me this child? If Hashem intended for them to receive in their chinuch any less than I could give them, he would have sent them to someone else. Und ob sie viert nicht aus, ihr Gazik in Tafel, dat sie in ganze nicht getan ihre Pflicht. Sie nicht erfüllt dem Eibishter's Willen. If I only give my child 50% or 75% of what I could be giving them, I'm not doing my job at all. Those are his words, right? Now, that sounds like guilt. So what we're not saying is we're intended to be perfect. We're talking about an attitude, right? And I found for myself, I was doing this for a while until I realized, like, stop. Anything that we're not doing or we're not good at, we feel so badly about, so we start rationalizing that it's not actually important, it doesn't actually apply, blah, blah. Because like the worst thing is that I should notice a discrepancy between what I believe I should be doing and what I'm trying to do and what I'm actually doing, which is called being human. But we're not okay with that. And if we could just acknowledge that, hold on, I might not be where I want to be, but I'm trying. I believe I should be doing this and this and this. I'm working towards that. And I believe my child should be there. And I'm doing my best to share that MS with them. And I'm trying my best to give my children what I believe they should be getting. And I fail much of the time. And that's okay. That's how it works when you're a human being. Sheva Yipol Tzaddik V'Kam, we fall 7 times and then we get up. That's all right. But when we give up on the goal because it's too hard to meet that, so like it's not a goal anymore, and it's not even important, that's a problem, right? At least our children should know I aspire to that. I admire it. I respect those who are there more. I try sometimes. I wish I was doing it. We're all working on it together, but we believe this is MS. We believe we should be getting there. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's not a thing. No, it's Yiddishkeit and it's our goal, and we're not perfect. So we all make mistakes. And Tati Mami are also growing. So we're not talking about I'm giving my child the perfect chinuch, but rather about what it means to set the bar lower. To basically let my child know, no, the bar is here. Oh, your school said this should, no, we're good. And we really handicap our child. Like, let them, who knows where they can reach? Right? We all hope for our children to be better than us and the things that don't threaten us. In Yiddishkeit, let them be better than us. Like I wish for my children that they don't have some of the struggles that I have, that some of the things that don't come as naturally to me should come naturally to them. Right? But how are they going to have that if I don't even communicate that it's attainable, that it's important, right? Just because out of fear of like, well, maybe they'll judge me or I don't have what to give or whatever, it might come across in anything. We're talking chassid, Yerushalayim, London, in standards of keeping halacha, in levels of chassidishkeit, in Torah learning, in what they should be doing with their time. I think like, oh, I'm not a shliach, so why should I glorify the concept of shlichus? Or I'm not in this, so why should I? Like we can still give our children goals. It's something to aspire to do this. We all try our best to get as close as we can to this ideal. And I hope for you, and I wish for you that you should get as close as possible as you can to that ideal. There's no place we're looking to reach. It's just a destination we're going towards, as long as we're heading in that direction. But often we just limit our children by going, no, don't do this. We don't do this. That's far beyond, that's extreme. That's whatever. And we kind of like just put a damper on like, whatever your teacher says. Leave it right there. We're not talking about being perfect parents. We're talking about reaching for the stars for our children, the ruchnius, about really believing who said, the Rebbe told a shliach in Australia who made an event for Taras Mishpacha, and what's worse than no one showing up to your event? One person coming to your event. So that wonderful one person came to his event and he felt like an absolute idiot. And he came to the Rebbe with that totally disheartened, feeling a failure, and the Rebbe said, Moshe Rabbeinu had only one mother. Now, how do we know what this child is capable of? How do we know what neshama we've been given? We don't have a clue what the child is, what their potential is, what they could reach. And we don't want to limit them. It's Hashem's child. It's like, I've been given a prince. I've been given a shining neshama, child of the Eibishter, to be their very honored babysitter. And I'm going to limit them by like, I'm so imperfect, so, you shouldn't be any better than I am. Right? How can we do that? If it's Hashem's child, then we want to reach for, believe they can anything. Believe they can be a bandy of the Tanya. Yes. And maybe they will, maybe they won't, maybe they'll be that way sometimes, right? But it's a matter of having a vision for the child that matches Hashem's vision for them, matches the real possibilities, and is not limited by your own cynicism, by your own failures. I fail, so there's no way you can possibly succeed. Why not? Right? Who says you can't? Who says you can't succeed more than I've succeeded? And a child will pick that up. Right? They only know what's normal. Like those who are not exposed to Torah mitzvahs at all might look at someone who's living a basic from life, be like, you expect your child to do such and such, like they think we're crazy. Everyone thinks everyone else is crazy. So a child only knows what's natural to them, what's been given to them. So if the child, I'm going to pick on a particular example just because a few people have asked me about it recently. I don't want to see this conversation, but often it comes up a question of like, can you get your child to wear tights? Like, it's really cruel. We take a 3-year-old, you can put tights on a 3-year-old. And, from a perspective of your child's a human being, who made this thing up anyway, that 3-year-olds are supposed to wear tights? What are you doing to them? And you're going to ruin their whole Yiddishkeit if you blah, 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 whatever. And no one ever made me wear tights. And when I was a kid, it was normal to wear knee socks, right? And go down this whole rabbit hole. And like, if I'm going to dress my child in tights, and that basically means I'm doing something wrong the whole time, or my parents, or my, blah, 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 right? And really all we're saying is we've learned something new. Just to clarify, it's not CS class, but to clarify the point on this, halachically, check this with a Rav, and halachically, it's actually more important, since according to the Rebbe, Tznius begins at 3, that a child is properly covered, period. Meaning any part of their body that's supposed to be covered in an adult has to be covered in a child also. And in a sense, it's more important that they're wearing tights, and if they're jumping around on the playground and tumbling upside down, that their thighs are actually covered, than the exact inches of their skirt. Like, it's more important that they literally are covered. So it actually is kind of important if our child's not wearing a long skirt or is young enough that they're tumbling. Kind of is a lot of valid reason halachically to have them in tights, even if we didn't do that, and even if I didn't wear that as a little kid. So when we approach this as like, I never, poor kid, why would our child want to? But I found that when you approach this as like, well, this is the way to ensure that a child keeps halacha properly, right, and is fully tzniusik, and they're a neshama, so they for sure want to do what Hashem wants, and it can't possibly hurt them to do what Hashem wants. Of course, you got to find ones that are comfortable, or this or that or the other. So it's just natural. And the younger they are, the more receptive they are, because they don't really know much different. And like, this is what tznius is. So it's all good. And it's not such a problem, as opposed to, I feel so bad for you. Like, poor kid. And we give that over to them, and then we wonder, they're like, we don't guarantee the chinuch ever of anything, but sometimes, we wonder at 12 why they're giving us a hard time with tznius. Like, if they picked up from us from 3 years old, this like, poor kid, tznius is like, something that I have to make you do, and I feel so bad about it. Like, we're limiting them, as opposed to we're saying, I believe you can embrace the highest standard of keeping halacha, the highest standard of Yiddishkeit, of whatever, happily, and that it's good for you. And I am lucky and fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to share it with you because I love you. Like, then we're letting our child, whatever struggles they're going to have, that's not our business, but we're giving them that open space, that vision to grow to be Kahanim Gedalim. Which really ties to, and I want to conclude with this, that the Rebbe started the Nasiah, Yud Shvat Tav Shin Yud Aleph. The Rebbe says that in that first Farbrengen, the Rebbe said Basi Lagani took on the Nasiah after a year. The Rebbe says in America there's a custom to have a mission statement. So we're gonna have a mission statement. This is what we do in America. When in America, you do as America. The mission statement of our generation is there are 3 loves. And I think if we think of it this way, whatever said it as a mission statement, that's not a light statement. You know, that means it encapsulates everything we need to know. And if, you know, we think of that as a mission statement of our chinuch, I think it's so empowering. The mission statement is there are 3 loves: Avas Hashem, Avas Torah, Avas Yisrael, and they're intertwined. They're interconnected. They're interdependent. Avas Hashem, loving Hashem, loving the Torah, loving another Yid. I want to take that from a few angles. Avas Hashem and Avas Torah. You know, it's easy to think I'm spiritual. You know, we're connected. I'm Chassidish at heart. I'm from at heart. I'm whatever at heart. I don't have to actually keep halacha, you know, whatever, went to the pneumius, whatever excuses we've come up with. You know, you don't actually have to keep the rules. It's, you know, I meditate, I do it my way. It feels spiritual and whatever to me. You know, that doesn't really fly, because it's like, that's like saying I really, really care about my spouse, but like, oh, they've been asking me many times to do such and such. I can't be bothered. You know, but I love them in my heart, you know, I mean, that's very nice, right? But no spouse is going for that. You know, at the end of the day, it's the actions. If you care about me, you'll do the things you know were important to me. Avas Hashem and Avas Yisrael, as the Baal Shem Tov said in many different ways, if you love the Father, you love his children. The greatest way that you show Hashem you love him is you love the parts of him, the expressions of him. You love every Yid. And where there isn't Avas Yisrael, we're coming to Ches Av soon, Erev Tisha B'Av. The Hayom Yom is what is the pool of Chassidus Yerushalayim? What does all the Chassidus in Yerushalayim accomplish if it doesn't express itself in actuality as the bottom line of Avas Yisrael, caring for another Yid, Chas v'Shalom, that we should, you know, do the opposite. It's just the ultimate expression of what it means to love Hashem. And to love the Torah, to be a from Yid, is to have Avas Yisrael, but it also works the other way. And before I get there, I want to apply that to chinuch. Avas Hashem is Avas Torah, right? We want to raise our children to be connected to Hashem. That means actually in halacha and the details, right? It really means helping them embrace a love for mitzvahs in all their details. It's not just a vague, you know, I feel connected to Hashem, I feel from. It boils down to all halacha, etc. Minhagim, Avas Hashem and Avas Yisrael. Because I loved my child, because I love Hashem, I love his child. My love for you is not dependent on my feelings. It's not only because you're mine. Yes, there's that extra connection a child's going to feel naturally with, you know, the parent. That's healthy and it's normal, but there's something beyond that. Because even when that's clouded over, and even when I'm frustrated with you, you're Hashem's child. That's why you're precious. And we treat them in a different way. But it also works the other way. What is the ultimate Avas Yisrael? Is Avas Hashem and Avas Torah. If I really love my child, then I want to give them the greatest gift there is. And that is the gift of knowing themselves and being their real selves. I don't want to shortchange you. I love you, and therefore I want to give you the kind of life that will be your greatest self-expression. I want to help you live the kind of life that you're meant to live and will bring you the satisfaction that nothing else will, and that is a lifeless connection to Hashem. If we believe that, because if we don't believe it, you know, we can say it, but it's not going to get us very far. It's not even in words. It's an attitude that comes across if we really believe it. If we see our child as a neshama and Torah and mitzvahs as their natural expression, as the healthiest, most positive, most beneficial lifestyle for the child to be who they are, right? I don't apologize for it. I don't have rachmanis for you. I'm not trying to shield you from it. I'm looking to help you be who you really are. And I believe that that's the greatest good there is. That truth is going to resonate. And the child is going to embrace that. If I really love you, then because of my love for you, I'm sharing with you the emes. I'm sharing with you, this is who you are, and this is what Hashem wants from you. And you know, just conclude with this, there was a chassid in Russia who took his young child to the mikvah, I guess on Friday afternoon or whatever it was, to title the mikvah, and it was freezing cold, like frigid, ice cold Russian winter. And the child was shivering. It's it's like so cold. And they came out and gave him a towel and started to defrost and warm up. And the child goes, ah. And the father told his son, remember that this is how Yiddishkeit works. When first comes the ooh, and then comes the ah. First, it seems hard. It seems like you don't want to do it. Just push through it. Afterwards, the greatest joy and the greatest satisfaction comes from doing the right thing. But the opposite, the Yetzer Hara, following our Nefesh Bahamas, initially it's initially it seems easier. It seems easier to let's okay, whatever, you don't speak that rule, or whatever, be that way. Afterwards, it's food. It never feels that good. It's like indulging in something we know we really shouldn't eat, and then we feel it, Still remember one of my kids, I let them on Purim. They got all this nosh that I'm looking at going like, how do I make this disappear? And I said, okay, whatever, we'll deal with the rest later. But for today, Purim, I allow you to have up to 3 of your treats. Like not more than that. The most you can take from your treats today is 3. And the child ate the 3 treats and came to me at the end of the day with like, Mom, why'd you let me have 3 treats? I'm so nauseous. Thank you. I didn't say you should. Right? But the point is, it's like, I want to, and they're like, if, I feel if, but of course we don't remember that the next time. When it comes to Nefesh Bahamas, first it's and then it's do. But when it comes to the Nefesh L'Kis, when it comes to helping our children do what Hashem wants from them, it might be hard initially, but the satisfaction, the joy, the feeling of inner peace, the sense of I'm who I want to be, the sense of I'm victorious, I feel so good about myself, I feel so wholesome, is so rewarding. And it's really the greatest gift we can give our children, but it comes from believing that Torah and mitzvahs are their natural state. Because if they're a neshama, then Torah and mitzvahs are just the glove that fits. And imagine if we could approach everything in our chinuch from that angle. I'm not like Nevach, I have to make you do this and not let you do that and whatever, and go to school or Torah. It's like, this is the best thing for you because you're a neshama and you want to do this. And you're going to be happy when you do this. And it's my greatest privilege that Hashem has entrusted me with the responsibility to share this with you. The Avos Hashem, Avos Torah, and Avos Yisrael coming together. And so, on that note, really, we'll get into Mirz Hashem and the other parts of the series, the specific aspects of different parts of Yiddishkeit or mitzvahs and attitudes to them and how we can approach sharing them with our children. But I think everything really ends up falling back on this ultimately, on really what do we believe about the child and what do we believe about the Torah mitzvahs that we're sharing with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, Mashka.
So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Mushka Leiter, and I just wanted to point out here in Miriam's Motherhood Center. So our goal is to celebrate mothers and support mothers. And so we have fitness classes over here. We have a play room in the other room for mothers and toddlers. And there's of course physically supporting mothers, and then there's the spiritual. There's the neshama that we have to also nurture. So having Shiurim here, having this series is so it completes the picture. So thank you for Michelle and sharing with us your wisdom, your experience. And this year, actually sponsored by the family. This is a Aurora bonus in honor of Father Yitzchak Ben Rabbi. It's actually tonight, tomorrow. So we're going to unmute her, and for just a minute or two, she'll share with us a little bit about her father, special man.
Thank you. And actually, after we do that, just we're on Zoom, we'll open up for a few minutes if someone has questions. We'll do that right after that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm very honored to participate, and especially the inauguration of the Shiurim. And thank you to Chanie Wolf, it was a beautiful shir. So enjoyed it. And Mushka for putting this together. And tonight is my father's yard site, tonight and tomorrow. And I just want to say a few words about him in regards to children and chinuch. My father, his 35th yard site. He was one of the first Talmidim of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And he owned a Judaica store, a Sfarim store. And it was a very busy store. And you young mothers probably wouldn't know it, but your bubbies and other people would know it. And sometimes there would be children coming to shop in the store. And he repeated this to us, to his children, to us, as we would help him sometimes work there, that we must always be careful when there's a young child, a customer who is very young, that we should give them the proper attention. And he would never like skip over them if there was, and sometimes it could be really busy. It was before a Yantif or before a school year when they were buying Sfarim and things. And he would take the time and the patience to look into the eyes of that child. Most of them were very shy, they were young. And he would, really make them feel important and positive. And he would give them that extra, chizuk to feel good about themselves and to know that they're important. And I just wanted to share that with you, and looking forward to many more shiurim in the Motherhood Center, Miriam's Motherhood Center. So Koltov.
Thank you.
Ron? Okay, one moment.
You're on.
Yeah, Ron? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bert, for sharing that. And your brothers and Shama should have an aliyah. We're going to open for a short time for questions, discussion. Should just be one way. If you're on Zoom and you have something you want to say,
You have a question on Zoom.
we have a question on Zoom. You can put that. We'll try to catch you if you're on Zoom. So first, we had one comment here.
I heard a speaker once say that when she says Ramadan in the morning, she translates it as thanking Hashem for giving her the Shema is like her children.
That's beautiful.
For entrusting them to believe in her.
That is so beautiful. I'm going to repeat that for whoever didn't hear that on Zoom. Do you know who that was? We had here a participant who remembers the speaker sharing that when she says Madani, that she translates that for herself as thank you not only for giving me my neshama, but the neshamas of my children to take care of. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
I'm wondering how you balance all of this with multiple children.
How do we balance that with multiple children? Perspectives, first of all, are not divisible. So, that a child's neshama, so we have many neshamas. The practicality of how we find the time to deal with them or whatever, is a separate discussion. Riz Hashem will get to some of that, and some of it there isn't a logical answer other than we try our best in Hashem. Like it says here, we have to do our part, and Hashem does his part. But really, the biggest thing is the mindset, right? So if I have 2 children, if I have 10 children, or whatever, if I have a classroom full of 30 children, if they're all neshamas, then I'm just going to approach everything differently. That has nothing to do with how much time I'm going to have to deal with every one of them, but in the interactions I have with them, it's going to be different. I think primarily that's the point. Was there something here that we missed?
Yeah.
Okay, we're following the questions on the Zoom.
What kind of things to fix ourselves in what area of Hasidishkeit? Was that question?
Yeah.
Was it? What kind of things to fix ourselves in what area?
That's a tough question. That's what we have Mashpias for. Because I think, we said I mentioned the Spiegel. The amazing thing about children, there's a joke they say that before I had children, I used to give the 10 commandments of parenting, and then when I had my first child, it became 10 suggestions for parenting. When I had my third child, I stopped speaking. So I guess I haven't absorbed that enough because I'm speaking, but it's the things I'm talking to myself, we're working on. It's really, I've noticed that the more we have children, it's not meant to make us feel like, oh, I don't know anything. The point is, it really though highlights our chesronos and what we need to work on, and Hashem sends exactly the children we need for our tikkun, if you've noticed. Just like Hashem says, exactly the spouse we need for our tikkun, and magically, although there are only, so far as they discovered, like 5 love languages, somehow we never align. It's never the same 2 or whatever. So when it comes to children, those kids who trigger our buttons, the worst. And often it's because they're like the opposite personality, or they have either they have the chesaron that we totally can't understand. People are like, I don't even get it. Like, this doesn't work for me. I'm like, move with blinders. And like, I guess my kids aren't watching this. So I'm like, like to me, I don't choose to teach little children because patience is not one of my strongest points. Like, let's talk to adults. And then like, I'll have those children who, just float and are a little bit in like a dreamland and like are slower. And like, I'm like, Hashem is forcing me to work on exactly what I never wanted to deal with. Like, no, you have to figure this out, how to just do that pace. And, Hashem just does that for all of us. So when we realize that, it's not like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. No, Hashem is really sending us a message. This is something you wouldn't have chosen to work on. You need to work on it. So we all know what those things are. And if we don't, we have mashpia, or we look at our children and see where we're getting frustrated. And it's very individual. There's no one thing. It's really what our child is struggling with. We need to look inward first and say, how can I, whether it is accept them, or how can I work on that issue? If they're struggling with davening, what does my davening look like? If they're struggling with language, how am I talking? Anger, emotional regulation, whatever, usually it's really just repair awareness. Something else next?
Sure. It said over here, how you were saying that the concern about your Chanie is the ruchnius is for us. So how do you say, like you were saying, you shouldn't parent out of fear, like out of fear of they should go over there, for all these things, if it's on us?
Right. That's a great question. So I want to clarify that what's on us is our choices. I want to make a personal plug for learning Shara B'Tachon, which I've started doing recently after going for years, going like, I'll do it one day. I saw this thing, I remember one of the books, maybe it was Ruchama Shane, something very cute. She says, someone once sent her or something, an item that said, this is around to it. What's around to it? It's for all those things you said I'm going to do when I get around to it. So here it is. So I finally got around to it of learning Shara B'Tachon, and ultimately everything boils down to that. Boils down to remembering that we have to make kalim because Hashem told us to make kalim. That's our responsibility, but the results are not in our hands. Not the Gashmi, it's not for us. Okay, the difference is that we have to be consciously, like the Rebbe Rashab says, thinking about half an hour a day about the chinuch of our children. That's literally the obligation, right? Just like it's an obligation to put on tefillin, it is a parent's obligation to spend half an hour a day thinking about the chinuch of their children, strategizing. What am I going to do? So it's not fear, but it's really taking responsibility as if I could control the outcome, but knowing that I can't. Meaning, if it were all up to me, what would I do? And am I doing all of that? And then I still need to let go and let Hashem take care of it. And in Gashmias, I need to know, yes, you do the best you can, but I need to know that it's Hashem that's being concerned. Also, I'm not going to make different choices in Gashmias based on, it doesn't seem like it's going to work out. I think what they're addressing in many cases is we're concerned about the child's future. Like in the world, it's, from the minute they're born, I'm planning for like, how am I going to pay for college, and how am I going to, how they can earn a living? Like, that's not our department to be like figuring that all out. How is it going to work in Gashmias? We do need to make a plan for our children's chinuch. We don't have to plan for their Gashmias in 10 years. We need to deal with the Gashmias of now. But the Ruchnias, I need to be thinking, if I want by the time my child's bar bas mitzvah for them to have absorbed, like, what are we doing in half an hour a day for children? Hopefully not just venting to our husbands about all the things that went wrong today and, strategizing. Like, wait, the child before they're born. Well, the Rebbe Rashab said so. So it's clearly a good idea at that, at minimum. Half an hour a day, the Rebbe Rashab says. Half an hour a day. And I right. So I'll tell you what I found. I'll tell you what I found helpful is the younger they are, especially if you don't have, if you have older children, you're going to have more to deal with, right? When you're starting with younger children, you have an incredible opportunity. That is have conversations between the parents to start talking about values. Like, what do we want for our children? What do we believe for our children? What do we hope they're going to be raised with? Get into interesting conversations about it. This is something I've struggled with. I want not like tactically, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? What do I envision? What's important to me? What does that look like? How would I want it to be different? And there's so many areas, and we'll explore some of them. But in terms of joy and love for Yiddishkeit, in terms of Yiras Shamayim and Kabbalah soil and keeping halacha, in terms of tznius, which is explosive, and really how do I want to present it in a way that's gonna be positive in my home. In terms of midas taivos, which there are so many of them, right? Whether it's from emotional regulation and handling anger to being kind and all the kinds of things that the world is really totally not in sync with. Self-esteem. Well, there's so many different things that we really want to think about that are like, before we deal with an issue and put on a band-aid of like, oh no, my child's presenting with this or that behavior, we could really just start building our shittas on this, and not our shittas, really, but Torah's shittas. Like, now I'm actually curious, like, wait, what is a Torah perspective on self-esteem? So like, let's start learning. Let's start exploring. If I don't have a lot of tools for that, like that's the greatest time to really be picking up, endorsement for, I want to promote the book, the Teachings of the Rebbe on Chinuch, I think it's called. It's a great collection. Such an easy way to really like just get a sense of the Rebbe's Chinuch views on various topics, like to build a Torah perspective on Chinuch so that it starts to naturally come out later. Teachings of the Rebbe on Chinuch. I think I said that accurately. Like White and Black book. Let's recommend it. You've seen it. Beautiful. I have like snippets of like nice. Beautiful. Thank you. So it's not even thinking about my child and right now what they're struggling with, as much as thinking about the chinuch I want for the Torah, Hashem wants for the child. And then so what we're thinking towards is like long-term strategizing and taking responsibility for their chinuch. By the time they're bar bas mitzvah, they should be davening on their own, and no one should be telling them to daven. No one should have to be in the room for them to daven. How am I going to get there? What's my strategy from the beginning to build a sense of davening between me and Hashem, and I want to do this and I should do this? How am I going to go about that? How am I going to plant the seeds? There's so much long-term thinking, but in Gashmis, we don't sit there doing that. We deal with now, taking care of them. We don't sit there like planning their whole Gashmis life out.
When does it like, we do teach them and tell them to guide them in that way, and then when does that pull back and then they're totally
that's a good question. I mean, I think the guy from Torah really is by bar bas mitzvah. The whole concept of bar bas mitzvah is right. We definitely don't. But that's a good question. Right. So chinuch in certain ways goes till 20. In certain cases says till 24. And then, of course, a parent always stays involved in supporting their adult children, but there's a very different kind of chinuch where you can't tell them what to do. You can more like encourage the positive. You can share meaningful feedback. But, times that are given in Torah, you see up to the concept of 24, that there's a concept of active chinuch of the child. And even the chinuch that happens after bar bas mitzvah, the point is by the time they're bar bas mitzvah, their chinuch should have brought them to a point that they're at least on a halachic level self-sufficient, that they are prepared to keep Torah mitzvahs, even if there's so much more that they, could be learning and need to be learning and whatever, but like the basics should be there in place for me. Yeah.
What about feedback? How are you able to
Such an awesome question. Something that I try to live with is this story. I'm sorry that I don't know which lesson it was, but there was a mashpia who told the Rebbe, how can I demand of the Bachrim? How can I cooperate with them about things that I'm not perfect in? I mean, at some point, as children, we think our parents are perfect, our teachers are perfect, and like the blow, it hits that the adults in our lives are not perfect, and there is nobody that's perfect, right? So how does anyone get to educate anybody about anything? So when the mashpia asked us, the Rebbe responded to something very powerful. As your Mund von sich kennt your Mund von anderen. If you demand of yourself, you can expect it and encourage it and, in a sense, demand it of others. In other words, I'm not telling my child, I'm perfect at this. How could you not be perfect at that? I'm saying, this is something I really believe in. It's really important to me. I really work on doing this. And I'm sharing with you that you're also supposed to be working on doing this. Now, obviously, to the extent.
You don't do something.
For sure. So then I should. Yeah, if I shouldn't have unrealistic expectations. At the end of the day, if I'm using not nice language, it's probably wishful thinking that I will, I'll get something better after I told you. Miracles happen, but I should not fool myself, right? So that's where we get a good look in the mirror and say, work on myself. At the same time, that's not an excuse for don't even bother teaching them. No, yes, do talk about it, the Shabbos table. And if they say, but you whatever, you're like, yeah, I'm working on it too. But you have to be working on it, right? And the child senses very clearly if you take it seriously, you're like, oops, right? That you're working on it. Or if you're talking, there was one school that had a hard time finding from teachers. I don't know the details, but basically they told the Rebbe, we have someone who's not particularly from, but he's willing to be respectful. He says he'll say all the right things. So the Rebbe says, and he'll educate students who will also grow to say the right things. So if we're just saying the right things, that's not getting us very far. But if we authentically believe what we're saying, we are actually struggling, not it's my struggle. It's in I don't do it because I've given that, that word struggle not only exempts me, I'm actually struggling with it. I actually demand it of myself, then I fully, without reservation and shame and whatever, should totally be giving it to my children and let them see me trying. And of course, the more they see me trying, the better chance I have. That's for sure.
It's such a high bar we're putting for ourselves to not let the ego get in the way.
The key is always the. Exactly. You're going, oops, now I really have to work myself. I found that really it all goes down to that question of somehow we hear lofty statements wait, I can never be that, and mother's guilt, parental guilt in this generation. I don't know if we've ever suffered such a machla. The more we know about what we should be doing, ignorance is bliss. So they used to not have lots of information. So it was just you did what you did. You didn't even realize how you were hurting your kids, so everything was good. And it's crippling to know how much you could be doing or should be doing. So the key, I think, always is going back to the message of Tanya, to heat tzaddik. No shame, we say that. Our neshama promised Hashem when we were born, and I would add that actually here, the Rebbe says that to heat tzaddik, how do you make the child swear? What does it even know? The promise actually is extracted from the parents, the Rebbe says. The parents are made to promise, I will raise my child to be able to be a tzaddik. So we're on the guilt, right? So to eat tzaddik, what, right? And then the rest of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe is sitting there helping us figure out how we balance the goal of being a tzaddik with the reality of we're far from it. And the point really is that the two coexist, and we should never let one take away from the other. The fact that I'm very imperfect, and where most of us are Rosh Hashanah, should not mean that I ever give up the goal of being a tzaddik. Why? Because if I continue to strive to be a tzaddik, then some of the time I'll succeed at being a man. Meaning I still aspire to live like a tzaddik, not to reach a place where I'm now a tzaddik. I aspire every moment's a new moment. I can make a tzaddik choice right now. The fact that I didn't before, and I may not the next moment, does not mean in any way I don't have the ability to make a tzaddik choice right now. I could be a baby in this particular moment by choosing Hashem over myself. I could do that. And if we continue to expect that of ourselves, even as we are far from that in reality, then we'll get to good places. We won't be perfect, but we're not meant to be perfect. Hashem wanted perfection. He had the Elohim He didn't need to create this world. It got very messy. He knew that. That was his choice. And he decided it's worth it. So the goal is not me being perfect. The goal is me driving in the right direction, the direction of tzaddik. And as long as I'm going in that direction, I will do my best. And I will know that Hashem appreciates my efforts, and chazak l'tamula, that we're promised that our efforts will bear fruit with our children, with ourselves, whatever. And it's not about how good am I, how good am I not. It's just, am I going in the right direction? That's the goal of the tzaddik, to just know which way to go. I'm not going to go here. I'm looking to go here. If I even got a little closer, that's great.
How do you still love your kids when they're done here? And is that part of your classes at some point?
Thanks, Chanie.
You
Yeah, sure.
mentioned, not a good question, but you mentioned about how it's not our concern, like the Bashman, right? And you included in that the emotional part of it. So can you elaborate on that? What do you
Yes.
mean by that?
Again, we have to do our kalim in Gashmias. So, yeah, but in the sense that ruchnius means our chinuch of the child. So anything that involves how we are mechanech the child, including the love we give the child, and we'll discuss love more next time, Ritz Hashem, and building their emotional health in whatever we can do, or their Gashmias health, is our responsibility. It's part of our chinuch. What's not our responsibility is the outcome of how the child will end up.
I mean, like, our emotional ability.
Right. So obviously there are exceptions in halacha when a woman is in, feels she's in a serious state that she can't handle having a child. That's an individual situation to speak to a rav and figuring out, is that real? Is that imagined? Is there anything that could be done about it? That's complex. But putting that aside, the Rebbe's point really is that we waste so much emotional energy on evaluating, am I a good parent? Am I capable of being a good parent? Like I can't remember where I read this recently. Someone was quoting a therapist as describing, like, I see so many young mothers and I'm spend so much of my time and take so much of their money to convince all of them that they are actually good enough mothers. And we're killing ourselves with this, like, and do I have what it takes to give to my child? If I stopped doing that, I would have what it takes to give to my child, because what do they need more than anything else? Simply a calm, present mother. No, but we're destroying ourselves with like, I'm supposed to this, I'm supposed to that. Right? Like just forget all of it and be present, and that's it, and then you'll be good. So
Maybe instead of like thinking about it for half hour a day, maybe I should just.
Right. So I think that's a great point. I think what the Rebbe Rashab is saying is, don't spend a half hour a day or an hour a day thinking about yourself. That's often what we're doing. When we say think about chinuch, we're not thinking about chinuch, we're thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about how good am I? And says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Yes, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Was that him? Right? That he, last day of his life, I have no idea where they're taking me, to Gan Eden or the opposite. What, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, you don't have a clue. He never sat down and evaluated, am I good enough mother? Am I not good enough mother? How do I rank? Who's better than me? Should I be depressed? He never went there. He just said what's needed of me. So what the Rebbe Rashab is saying is, just sit down and say, what does the child need? What do they need to work on? What do I need to be teaching them? But stop thinking about ourselves. The problem starts when we start evaluating ourselves and our capacity. What do I have to give? What don't I have to give? What did my mother not give me? And therefore I can't give them. We kill ourselves like that, as opposed to if we just thought, okay, I'm Hashem's ambassador here. Hashem gave me his child. There are no mistakes. He knows that I'm the best mother to raise this child. I have what it takes. I just have to find out what Hashem's instructions are. So I'm going to look into the Torah and find out, what does Torah say? What am I supposed to be giving this child? What am I supposed to be teaching this child? Hashem believes I can do that. So let me just find out. And from that place, I think a lot of the fear goes away. Like, okay, I might know Torah says that you should love your child. Okay, let me learn what that means. We'll explore that. Like, what does the child need? But not evaluating my capacities and whatever, which just send us literally off the rails.
Do you think that they're going to take about that and develop that while we're also like, you're already here. And it's never too late.
We're here. And it's never too late. And sometimes, it's like saying I don't have time to practice.
But like your child, let's say by the time you've gone on this journey of developing your relationship with sickness or your anger or whatever, it could take you a good few years, and your child suffered.
That's true. And so therefore, if it's, what do I tell the girls in seminary? Like, don't end up there. Do it now. But it's not okay for a foul. Right. But I'm saying that there's at every stage we tell ourselves what we need to know. And Torah says nishtakim for fallin. In fact, we know that how much do we know about Torah mishpacha? Whole thing, getting into that, about the effect it can have on a child. And, even briefly, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, how is it possible that you had Yidden in Russia who not only they weren't from, but they turned. I'm thinking, who like was thrown down the Friedrich Rebbe and the stairs in the prison. I just think of the cruelty of how they fought Yiddishkeit. Their baby. How does a neshama end up like that? Says the Friedrich Rebbe. This is the Friedrich Rebbe's lashon. You have to understand. This is the result of not giving Taras Mishpacha properly. Okay, so frightening things. I mean, Taras Mishpacha affects our children. So we say, like, what? And if I messed up, chas v'shalom, if there was a mistake. So what do we know? The Rebbe pushes that shluchim should encourage women who are past childbearing years, past menopause. They should go to mikvah once, and that can have a retroactive and positive effect on their children's neshamas. There's no such thing as it's too late. There's always better. It's always easier to do things right in the first place. But my child could be 5, 10, an adult, and I can always go back and improve things. We could have a child could be lacking attachment thing, and yes, we could rebuild it.
There are certain things that like you could really love it. Like you really could.
Yes, but the result is not up to us. So we might have done the wrong thing. Yeah. Yes.
Right. So like, let's say you really struggle with GS and you're trying to encourage your child to recognize it, love it, and you really don't love it, and you're so like the reality is that by the time you're 6, let's say you're already like, I don't want to wear tights, I'm not wearing tights, and you can't make me wear tights, and you're like, I've already gone on that journey, and now 3 years after I started asking you to be pants, I appreciate it, but I'm 3 years too late.
Right. So it's never too late, but obviously it's always harder to do something b'diavad than it is to do something l'chatchila, right? Doesn't mean it's not going to be the same. I might have to be creative. I might have to reach out to someone to get advice. How do I do it now? But now I might need to include them on my journey. I might need to start sharing meaningful things at the Shabbos table that I've learned. I don't get to give the initial impression and whatever, but I can do something else. Just like anyone could become a Baal Tshuva at any stage in life, and there's a mile to anything. So Bashgacha Pratis, Hashem knew that my child would experience this as part of their journey, right? If it ended up being a certain way, then that's Hashgacha Pratis. And what does Hashem want from me now to be mechanech my child now, where they're at? So it will look different. I can't just copy paste. I can't go back in time, but I can still be mechanech them plus tznius. I may need to start learning with them. I may need to watch a shiur with them and have a conversation.
Would you say that the same thing works with the
For sure.
It's
Absolutely, right? Of course, it's easier if my child from birth saw me being really so calm and just picked up from me, emotional regulation or whatever. That would be really nice, okay? But if not, and I started getting handled myself later, and now my child already has some anxiety and whatever else that's hard to fix, it's never too late. It's just maybe more effort and different kind of effort. We might need to have more conversation. I might need to be even more careful about how I react. I may need to help teach my child tools of how to deal with their anxiety now. There's no such thing as it's impossible, right? It's different now. And not to lie, it probably will be more effort. Yeah, okay, but that's a still practice. Sure.
I feel like maybe when you're thinking the way that, like, you're trying to educate your child, like, it's not like there's no, like, you want struggle is for the best.
Mhm.
When you're educating them, you always want to expect the best. And like, what do you mean this is Sarah? What else do you do? Like, there's no place to like picking your battles.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I'm going to leave it for another time, actually. So remind me, age appropriate chinuch. Like the fact that I'm teaching them the ultimate doesn't mean I expect the ultimate behavior right now from a 3-year-old. Right.
So that's my question.
And a 5-year-old doesn't need to be made and shouldn't be made to sit quietly near his father and chill for 3 hours, right? It's not a matter of expecting them to behave like a Beinoni right now. It's a matter of teaching them the ultimate truth. Starting to share with them the emes of how important davening is and how important this is and how important that is. Transmitting a real and authentic emes, and then leading them in an age-appropriate way to start taking that on. It's not about expectations. You will actually do this perfectly. Now, it's ultimately, you'll be doing this.
Are you showing them that to love what they're doing and appreciate what they're doing, and then as a result, they'll want to continue on with it, or you're just showing them?
In large part,
absolutely.
Right, so in large part, yes. Next time we'll get more into the love and joy and attitudes part, and then we'll do after that more the training and the Yerushalayim, which go hand in hand. Like a lot of it is a buildup of getting used to this is what the halacha is and how we do it. There are many messages coming along at the same time that hopefully as a child reaches what we call the age of chinuch, they come together for them to get like I should be doing this.
Because it's really hard to have this good feelings towards Kabbalah self. Right, because
right, which is why right,
we struggle and we had our parents sort of
right. The mindful of that with our children, that's easier by the way than teaching. That's a challenge when we get chinuch of the classroom or whatever. Is that when it comes to children, the first thing you get to give them is love. We'll talk more about that. But before you're teaching your child to do anything other than the subliminal, beautiful chinuch you can give them by putting them around Torah and the Shir Malas, and the thing that that's challenging in that way is you're just loving them. So. If we, for next class, but if we set the love foundation first, then everything could be coming across in a much easier manner. When you walk into a classroom, you first have to discipline them before anything else. That's a lot more challenging to be discussed. All right, was there anything else on the Zoom? Yes.
Do we have suggested books?
Do we have more suggested books? Yes, well, first of all, yes, so there's the Educator's Handbook from Rabbi Chanie. That's very nice. It's more for teachers. Klali Chinuch V'Hadracha with the translations. I think the Hus has one. It's very nice. It's a bit academic, but it has explanations, so it's more academic, but it's more of a learning. It's more of a limud. Is it? Chinuch B'Ahava is a translation of Chinuch V'Hadracha. So for everyone who knows Hebrew, that was a recommendation here. I'll have to think next time of some more. I would say, right, and Torah Chinuch, which is similar to that's in Hebrew, similar to the Rebbe on Chinuch, teaching the Rebbe on Chinuch in Hebrew with less of it. So I'd recommend everyone start with teaching the Rebbe on Chinuch as a starting point, and then there are more. I wish there was more. I wish I could say there was more that was easy applied. We're still looking for that. What? Aaron staff was recommended here.
She writes it missions everything.
Beautiful. So I haven't read it, but we have recommendations here for some of the participants. Aaron staff by Chav Mishlovitz. So I'm passing that on. Oh yes, thank you. The website anashchinuch.com. I think anashchinuch.com has a lot of really nice resources. Yes, they send out daily hours. They send out newsletters once in a while. They have a lot of content that's very meaningful. And I think ultimately we have to start with sources, but a lot of it is really just sitting back and a lot of it we know what Torah says, but it's taking the Rebbe says that half an hour a day to really sit down and say really, what does Hashem want from this child? What does Hashem want from me? What is Torah's perspective on this issue my child is dealing with? And it's not necessarily a chinuch book. It's often it's simply, if my child's struggling with davening, I should probably just learn more about davening, right? So it's not often a chinuch thing per se. It's really when we think about leadership values we're looking to transmit, we discover for ourselves what we need chizuk in, and it's always boils down to being mechanech myself. How do I strengthen myself with this topic, gain more inspiration about it, and then hopefully I can find the ICS. I would add one more thing, and that is Laman Yishmahu, or the weekly Farbrengen. So you can find on theweeklyfarbrengen.com. It's easier to spell than Laman Yishmahu, right? The weekly Farbrengen. Look that up, and they have by topic now hundreds. It's meant to be by the week that you can share at the Shabbos table, a collection of stories. What? They give them out, they print them out, but you can find the archives also. So you can get right, it's defined by topic, and they have collected stories and short sources and whatever on one topic. So I'm looking at it how do I share this value with my child? There's it's there prepared, and I can say at the Shabbos table, right, little bits, this little this and this little that, and it's easy to kind of take it and just decide that you're sharing it at a particular Shabbos table discussion, whatever. And those things really, again, it's a chinuch, but it's exactly, it's a way to do chinuch because it really just helps us give inspiration on topics.
I know the Rebbe said over here that the fact that we're in it means we could, but I feel we're expected to work, do shlichos, do how are we supposed to we hold the fort down on all fronts. Teaching the
Yeah, I probably leave that for another time also, because it's a whole huge topic, with that, like the role of women and balancing it. But I want to share something meaningful to me that there was one time that I was feeling really overwhelmed. Obviously, you need to, everyone needs to have a must be to be checking where they should be prioritizing, where they should be balancing, where they might be doing too much, and what does it mean to make sure that my priorities are in order. Maybe I shouldn't be doing all the things that I'm doing because of my children, but sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes something really is needed, et cetera, et cetera. So when we find ourselves overwhelmed and we know we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but it still seems stressful. So, I just want to share a personal story that there was a time that I wrote to the Rebbe about this, that I just felt like, well, how do you do everything? And how are my kids not going to lose out if I'm doing this or that? Like I'm trying to listen to my mashpia, I'm trying to do what I think I'm supposed to do, but it just doesn't feel possible. This is just an answer to me and the way I felt, but maybe it will inspire someone. So I actually wrote to the Rebbe and I put a letter to the Kodesh, and right there, the first words at the top of the page were Kvias Bizman, Kvias Benefesh. Have a set, which means, like when it says about Torah learning, a person should make a Kvias in Torah, set time in Torah. It should be a Kvias Bizman. It should be a set time and time, like every Wednesday, 8:30 I come to the class. And at the same time, Kvias Benefesh, something that's set in my, it's not just technically this is the time I do it, a designated time, but there's also like my soul, my feelings, emotionally, I'm fully present there. And what it really just said loudly to me was, you may be busy with lots of things, you may be paid something, you may have stuff to do, but when you're there with your children, first of all, have Kriyas Guzman, have those times that are sacred, that you're there for your children and the needs of your children, that like this, right, this I'll be there for, or whatever. And when you're there, I think our biggest challenge is not even how much we're able to be with our children. I'm not in any way advocating spending any less time than we're able to, right? But I'm talking about to the guilt factor of when we feel like we don't have as much time as we want to. Kvias benefesh. Are we really present, or are we with our phone and and all of that, thinking about all the things that we have to do? And ultimately, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruch Tonel B'Yis, so Hashem doesn't come with expectations of human beings that are more than they can handle. So am I making the right choices? I need to talk to my mashpia to find out what I should be doing in my life at any particular time. But once I've been told what I should be doing, and I feel overwhelmed, then I need to believe that maybe what I think is necessary isn't as necessary. Like maybe Hashem can give hatzlacha bizman, that the time that I am present, they can get what they need, but I have to be fully present in the time that I'm present, instead of worrying about when I'm not present. Or, like instead of worrying about what I can't give, am I fully giving what I'm able to give? And we need to trust the Eibishter that, like, it's, again, we have to do our best, but that it's not all, a science that adds up. All right. People that will call it night. Come back next week for more. There's no end to this. We could probably go on a 36-week series, but